Today, Spain covers an area of about 195,000 square miles, making it the fourth largest country in Europe. It borders Portugal to the west and France and Andorra to the north. Spain also controls the Balearic Islands in the Mediterranean Sea and the Canary Islands in the Atlantic Ocean. But if we look back to the early 19th century, Spain ruled over a vast empire of nearly 5 million square miles, stretching from North America to Argentina in South America. Even the Philippines, across the Pacific in Asia, was once under Spanish control. So the real question is, how did a small country like Spain create such a massive empire? And what went so wrong that in just a few years, the world's first and fastest growing superpower collapsed and was reduced to just one country? This is the story of how Spain rose faster than any other nation in history and then fell just as fast. In today's video, we'll explore how Spain became the world's first global superpower and what led to the downfall of the once mighty Spanish Empire. Let's travel back to the 8th century, when the region we now call Spain was under Muslim rule and known as Al-Andalus. Muslims ruled this area for nearly 800 years. During that time, Spain saw major advancements in science, philosophy, and architecture. But even then, Muslim rulers constantly faced resistance from Christian kingdoms. This long conflict was known as the Reconquista, a series of battles fought by Christians to take back control of Spain. By the late 1400s, Christians had reclaimed about 90% of the land, leaving Muslims in control of just one area, Granada. So by the 15th century, what we now call Spain was divided into 3 Christian kingdoms and 1 Islamic kingdom. Then in 1469, to make Christian control stronger and to finally drive the Muslims out of Spain, Queen Isabella of the Kingdom of Castile and King Ferdinand II of Aragon got married. Together in 1492, they defeated the Muslim armies in the Battle of Granada and took full control of all of Spain. Once they had full control, these Christian kingdoms now had a chance to explore the rest of the world and take advantage of new international trade routes. Right next to them, the Portuguese Empire had already started exploring the Atlantic Ocean around 70 years earlier and had discovered trade routes from the south of Africa to South and East Asia. Because of that, they were slowly breaking the Ottoman Empire's trade monopoly, since the Ottomans controlled almost all the trade between Asia, the Middle East and Europe at the time. In the 1480s, an Italian explorer named Christopher Columbus approached the Spanish rulers with an idea. He suggested that if the Earth is round, then instead of sailing around Africa to reach Asia, they could sail west from Europe and reach Asia through a shorter route. Back then, no one really knew what lay on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, but Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand were interested. They wanted Spain to catch up with Portugal in finding new trade routes, so Columbus's proposal seemed like a promising opportunity. On August 3rd, 1492, Christopher Columbus set sail from the Spanish town of Palos de la Frontera with 3 small ships. After about 2 months at sea, he reached an island. Thinking he had landed in East Asia, he named it San Salvador. He continued exploring the Bahamas, northern Cuba, and Hispaniola. In 1493, Columbus returned to Spain and told the king and queen that he had found many new islands no European had ever seen. Delighted, they sent him back later that year, this time with 17 ships. On this second journey, Columbus explored more of the Caribbean and returned to Spain by 1496. He went on a third voyage in 1498, during which he discovered Trinidad, Venezuela, and parts of northern South America. Until then, he still believed he had found islands near Asia, but during this trip, he began to suspect he had actually discovered an entirely new continent. In 1502, Columbus embarked on his 4th and final voyage, discovering Panama, Jamaica, Honduras, and Nicaragua. He became seriously ill during the trip and returned to Spain, where he died in 1506. Although Columbus never found a direct route to Asia, his discovery of a new continent changed the world forever. However, his voyages also sparked a conflict between Spain and Portugal over who would control the newly found lands. To resolve the conflict, Spain and Portugal signed the Treaty of Tordesillas. This agreement divided the non-European world between them using 2 imaginary lines on the map. All the territory shown in yellow went to Spain, while the rest was assigned to Portugal. That's why, even though Brazil is in South America, it became part of the Portuguese Empire. And that's also why today, almost all South American countries speak Spanish, except for Brazil, which speaks Portuguese. After the treaty, Spain began building permanent settlements in the New World. The first city they established was Santo Domingo, located on the island of Hispaniola. Over the next few years, by around 1515, Spanish settlers began arriving throughout the Caribbean and Central America. Cuba became the Spanish Empire's main base in the region. Meanwhile, the search for the rest of the Americas continued. Spanish explorers had reached the Yucatan Yucatan region when they began hearing stories of a powerful and wealthy empire to the west. So in 1518, Hernán Cortés set sail with a small group of men and landed on the coast of present-day Mexico to investigate. At that time, Mexico was ruled by the Aztec Empire, and their capital was Tenochtitlan, a stunning city built on a lake. After 2 years of fierce fighting, Cortés captured the city in 1520. It was later renamed Mexico City and became the administrative center of the Spanish Empire in the region. However, the Spanish brought something more dangerous than weapons: diseases. Local people had never encountered these illnesses before and had no immunity. As a result, millions died from smallpox and other diseases, weakening local resistance. While Spain had now taken control of the northern region, new reports came in. There were more rich civilizations farther south. In the Andes Mountains, across modern-day Peru, Ecuador and Bolivia, the Inca Empire ruled a vast territory. Over the next 12 years, the Spanish conquered the entire area. Again, diseases played a major role. Most of the local population died before they could even fight, making it easier for the Spanish to take over their cities. By the 1530s, Spain controlled the vast yellow-shaded area on the map. The northern regions of today's US and Canada were still mostly unexplored, though in 1539, a Spanish explorer named Hernando de Soto traveled through places like Florida, Georgia, and Texas. But Spain never established major colonies there. While the Spanish Empire was expanding in the Americas, a major development was unfolding on the other side of the Pacific. A Spanish explorer named Ferdinand Magellan discovered a group of islands in East Asia, what we now call the Philippines. By the 1570s, Spain had fully taken control of these islands and began to engage in Asian geopolitics from there. As the empire grew throughout the 16th century, its hunger for wealth also grew. Spain started aggressively mining resources in South America. They discovered massive deposits of gold and silver in regions like Mexico, Bolivia, and Peru, and shipped them back to Europe. By the end of the 1500s, so much gold and silver was being sent from South America that Spain began running out of storage space. At one point, Spain was receiving nearly 80% of the world's entire gold and silver supply. But this heavy resource extraction started exhausting South America, and over time, a new kind of mixed society began to form. One group was the mestizos, children born from Spanish men who had married local women. Another group was called the Creoles. These were children of Spanish parents, but they were born in the Americas. And then there were the Peninsulares, often referred to as the pure bloods. They were born in Spain to Spanish parents and were sent to the Americas solely to govern. Because of that, they were seen as the ruling class. By the 17th century, serious tensions began to grow between these groups. The Creoles and mestizos started feeling frustrated. Their argument was simple: if we're born here, why shouldn't we be the ones ruling this land? Why should people from Spain, who don't even live here permanently, get all the power? So, while the Spanish Empire was trying to deal with internal class conflicts, it was also facing pressure from the outside. In North America, the British and the French had started arriving and were setting up their own colonies. At the same time, Britain was making moves to take over strategic places like Jamaica and other Caribbean islands from Spanish control. Between 1654 and 1660, wars broke out between Britain and Spain over these territories. In the following century, the Spanish Empire didn't expand much, just a few additions like California and Texas. In those areas, cities like Los Angeles, San Diego, and San Francisco were established. But then came a massive blow. In 1808, Napoleon invaded Spain and took control of the entire country in less than a year. And while Spain was occupied, the people in South America, especially the Creoles and mestizos, saw this as their moment. One by one, independence movements broke out. Argentina declared independence in 1816, Chile followed in 1818, then Colombia in 1819, 2 years later Mexico broke free too, and finally by 1824, even Peru had declared independence. In just 8 years, the mighty Spanish Empire collapsed. After ruling for more than 400 years, it shrank dramatically. By the end of the 19th century, Spain was left with just a few scattered territories: Cuba, Puerto Rico, some Caribbean islands, and the Philippines. But even those didn't last long. In 1895, the Cuban War of Independence began, and this time the United States got involved. Just 3 years later, Spain had to surrender. With that, it lost the last of its colonies, and the once mighty Spanish Empire officially came to an end. For 400 years, Spain had ruled half the world world and controlled 80% of the world's gold supply. But in the end, the mighty Spanish Empire collapsed and was reduced to just this small piece of land that we now call Spain. So that was the story of Spain, how it rose to become the world's first global superpower and then lost it all. We are going to make more videos like this, so if you like this idea, let us know in the comments so we can make more of these. These are all the sources we consulted while making this video. We'll be waiting for your comments because the next video will be based on your suggestions. Take